Thanks, Mike. I'd like to thank the sponsors for making today possible as well. So I'm going to talk about technology, applications of two types of technology. We're looking at unmanned aerial systems, UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, remotely piloted aerial systems, remotely piloted aerial vehicles, or drones. So essentially, the terms are largely interchangeable. So we'll have an introduction to UAVs. Then we'll look at some of the commercial applications of drones. And then I'm going to introduce two technologies to you. One is called Air Fleet Manager, and the other is iAssessor, a paperless audit system. And then we'll draw some conclusions. So we've had drones, or unmanned aerial systems, in existence for over 130 years. The British meteorologist Douglas Archibald was the first person, I believe, to attach a camera to a kite. And this photograph of the aftermath of the San Francisco earthquake was also a kite photograph. In the 1910s, we saw the development of the first unmanned systems as weapons of war, the Kettering bug on the right and the Sperry torpedo on the left. And we've seen unmanned aerial vehicles and drones being used increasingly by the military for use in these various wars from Vietnam through to more modern day. Now, these are what they look like today. We have the DJI Phantom on the top left and all these different other varieties. They can carry a variety of payloads, from some of the smallest drones carrying a few tens of grams up until sort of 5 or 6 kilograms. They are now even being deployed as mobile defibrillators, which you can call in on if you're mobile if you're quick enough while you're having your heart attack. They're also being used to send transplant material, such as hearts, between hospitals as well. So some of the commercial applications, they range from bulk, paper mining, traffic monitoring, through the construction. We have intelligent UAVs as well, oil and gas installations, onshore, offshore, and vessel inspections. So this is a very large stockpile of wood chip. The problem we have is we don't know how much volume we have. We can't send a surveyor up to have a look because you can't stand on it because you sink into it. So it's really is as a hazardous nature of the stockpile. How on earth do we find out what there is? So what we can do is we can overfly with a drone this particular stockpiles, and then using specific types of algorithm, we can calculate what the exact volumes are. So in this example, there's an overfly by a drone which takes about 10 minutes to complete, and then they can come up with various quantities and come up with the exact quantity of how much of the material exists. I believe that we can use the same technology to work out how much bulk volume there is loaded in each of the individual holds on a vessel. I haven't seen it done before, but I can't see why it can't be applied to that as well. This is a photograph taken from a drone in Dubai by the Ministry of the Interior. What they use this for is they use it for monitoring the traffic, but also those of you who know Dubai will recognize the new metro system there. And previously, where they've inspected each of the columns, they've had to close the road if necessary, put a cherry picker up with a person in it, and go and have a look at the support struts and to see how they're faring. Nowadays, there's a company in UAE which does this using a drone. So it reduces the amount of requirement to close the roads and less requirement for the cherry pickers as well. So it's much quicker. In construction, it's used for cost-effective inspection and survey capabilities for roads, railways, pipeline. In the UK, there are 2 helicopters that survey all the pylons and electricity pylons and lines. So now you could reduce that requirement and replace it with unmanned aerial systems to reduce the cost and improve the speed with which it can be done. We have various smart systems. Unfortunately, our video doesn't work, but here I'm demonstrating a particular artificial intelligence drone called a Lily, which snowboarders use to film themselves. So they take their Lily, they throw it up in the air, and it reads the transponder here on their wrist, And as they snowboard down, the Lily can be programmed to follow them from the rear or follow them from the front. And so there are quite a lot of interesting YouTube videos which you can have a look at for that sort of thing. Oil and gas installations, there's applicability of the drones to do survey work there. Similarly for onshore wind farms, surveying any failures, cracks, etc. is a lot easier than putting up scaffolding. Offshore would obviously depend on the wind speed because the drones can't all operate within windy conditions. And then we come to the vessel inspections. So the Royal Navy is now starting to see this. This was in June, was their trialling for inspections. Now, I know from the research that I've done that surveyors are using drones to survey vessel holds, but there are some drones which can go into, obviously drones can operate in low oxygen levels, low light levels. There's one particular drone about the size of a basketball which you can just launch into a confined space, and what it will do is just bounce around that confined space, mapping all of it and filming all of it, so that when it returns to you, you can then download that video from the card. You can also stream live video from drones if you have the appropriate connections, but essentially the ability to use them for going into smoke-filled areas to look for any casualties is also another application. The Financial Times, the drone economy in the Financial Times estimates that the growth of the market will be quite significant, but mainly in the military, but also from applications for commercial as well. In the United States, the Federal Aviation Authority initially said that we're not allowing drones to operate above head height, and then Amazon almost basically put a gun to the FAA's head and said, if you don't allow us to use drones to deliver parcels in the future, then we will up sticks and move to Europe. So they've changed their regulations on it. But regulations are still in their development phase. They're in their infancy. So what are the sectors that we can see drones being applied in? We can see everything from transport, logistics, water, health, currently being used quite a lot in entertainment and media. A lot of films are shot using drones nowadays. There's potential in communications, in energy, emergency services, and in the others as well. Applications I put at the top, not just for this conference, but I believe that in marine and non-marine surveying, there's a lot of capability for using unmanned aerial systems. Border security and surveillance. The British government has just put out an alert to the various members of the Security in Complex Environments Group, the SCEG, to say, can we apply drone technology as part of a security solution to deal with the migrant problem that we have in Calais? And so it's adding another dimension not only to safety but also for security. And there are many different varieties of applications. For the sports stadia, for the forthcoming Rugby World Cup, drones can be used to overfly the entire stadium, basically row by row, to see if there are any parcels that have been placed there, in addition to the dog work that they're doing for the explosive stiffing. Oil and gas inspections, pipeline inspections, medicine delivery. I hadn't heard of this before, fog dispersal at airports, but there's a potential for that as well. I think some people estimate that in 5 years' time we'll be seeing highways of drones flying above the roads, delivering our parcels. You can have a drone deliver something to your smartphone. This is the way the technology works. I think one of the logistics companies is working on how to deliver packages to the boot of your car, to the trunk. And so I think this is technology that will happen in the future. So looking at the legislation, currently it's mainly UK and Europe which has the most advanced legislation. In the UK, the drones fall under the CAA regulations. So they have issued recently this CAP 722, which defines the requirements for a pilot to operate a remotely piloted aerial system and or a drone. And if you want to operate a drone commercially, you have to undergo a 2-day classroom training in terms of all the legislation, and then the third day is a practical. Currently, if you want to conduct commercial operations with drones in the UK, you can't conduct them within 50 meters of a building or 150 meters of people, unless if you have specific permission from the CAA. And that permission at the moment is taking up to 4 weeks. So if you want to run a commercial operation, you have to consider all of these elements as well. And in the US, we have tight restrictions, and they've been modified in April 2015. And we'll see how this is all going to develop. Now, drones are not new. The application in marine surveying is not new. Some of you may already be using those. But what is new is this concept of the Air Fleet Manager. Essentially, what it does is it records all of your flight data, all your pilot data, all your licenses, all your permissions, and it records all the data of your missions so that your underwriter can go in, log into your Air Fleet Manager system and look at all of your missions and your flights. When I've been talking to Kiln, the underwriter, one of the leading underwriters of aviation here in the market upstairs, they say that when they're insuring commercial flights of drones, they have no idea of the risk because they can't see it, they can't get a feel for it. When they're insuring a fleet of Boeing 777s, they have very good visibility of how they are run. They have good idea about what are the requirements for the pilots and the types of missions that they conduct in terms of commercial operations. But when it comes to drones, they have no idea. So the underwriters are very willing for their clients to take a system like this so that it gives them visibility of the risk. An underwriter who has a better visibility of the risk is one who's willing to do a better deal for the client. So what the Air Fleet Manager does, it records has the details of your fleet, your mission, your pilots, your actions, your alerts, your payload status, and all of your flight plan. In particular, if you're doing something outside of your agreed insurance terms, you can then submit all that information directly to the underwriter to get cover for that. So you have details about all of your kit, where it is, what it's doing, and recording all the details of your missions, the status of them, the aircraft, the pilot, and the fleet. And you'll have, for example, Rob Lenihan here, my colleague at Synergia, pilot first class. He's a qualified UAE pilot now, and have details of all of the flights that he's undertaken, how long they were, etc. So that is application. That's one type of technology which is on the up. The other is this paperless audit system called ISSA. Now, ISSA is essentially conducted on one of these, on an iPad or a tablet. And on this tablet, we have preloaded all of these assessment templates. Everything from ISO 9001, 14,000, 18,000, occupational health and safety, OHSAS 1801, IOSH, 31,000 risk management, 65,000 organizational resilience. A lot of these different ISO standards. And the standards, the way the audits are done is done with no paper. It's purely following the procedures through the ISSA. Rob Lenihan, who developed this software technology, he started out with the IAEA, and then he's basically rolled it out for IMO combined vessel audits. We have templates for BMP4 assessments, vessel HSSE assessments, ISPS assessments, vessel hardening, dry dock safety, super yacht, rig check, all of these different types of assessments which are being done on a regular basis, from the oil and gas field through to environmental, maritime, aerospace, and even food safety. Essentially, the kit is the hardened shell with the carrying case, one of these clever little devices called an air stash, where when the survey is completed, it's basically wirelessly conducted to the air stash, and the air stash has a USB port, and that can be plugged into the master's computer. He can see the results of the survey as it's being done. Those of you who are involved in oil and gas and rig, we have one of these, which is an intrinsically safe case, which is spark-free, so the survey can be done on the audit pad, on the ISSA, in those kind of environments. The process, obviously the Deming process, with which you're all familiar, so I don't need to dwell on that. That is the core process that we follow. We start with the client and the audit owner, the lead assessor, and then we go through to the conducting the assessment, making the observations, logging non-conformances, making comments, making recommendations. We can collect photos in the field. Now, Milind, this is interesting because this affects your workflow. Because the photographs stay in here, you can take video, and when you press the button to have your report done, it's all there still in here. And that then, there's no emailing of photographs. Nobody has to sit in the hotel for 3 days and write up the report. Because once all of the details of the report have gone through, press the button, the report is automatically generated. We analyze it, and then we go back to the client for the improvements, the discussions, and corrective actions. What are the benefits? We reduce the costs because you don't have to have the additional costs and time in writing up the report. Improve compliance and decision making. It's easy to use, it's portable. You have powerful analytics that work in the background. It's secure, and also it reduces the opportunity for error in transcribing the initial report, what's initially recorded, to the final report. CMA CGM in 2013, they were estimating it was costing them 7 million to run this. Using the ISS system, they've saved £2 million per annum in terms of their internal audit costs alone. The functions, you essentially have your own dashboard where you have your own data, you have your own templates which are there, which are relevant to the surveys which you're conducting, you have the assessments that you have, actions that need to be taken, mapping. Every report is geolocated. I can take this system and do a survey of a container vessel which is in Liverpool and do half the survey. Send the survey up through the cloud down to our secure server, and a surveyor in New York can complete the survey in 2 weeks' time with the same survey. And all of those photographs are geolocated. So essentially the reporting, you have 7 types of management reports, everything from a brief report to the full report. So essentially is what it looks like. You have your OK, non-conformance or not applicable. If you hit the non-conformance button, then you can say what kind of issue. Is it an issue? Is it non-compliance? You can apply your photograph, take a photograph of it, and then you can put text to it. So again, we're dealing with the workflow at the time. So these can be observed, comments recorded, and media is stored within the system. So within the reporting, either locally from the assessment data, also using the reporting services, you have standard reports or ad hoc reports, as and when, depending on the audience. So here we have a demo of a vessel hardening inspection for a CMA vessel, the Ville d'Orient. We have the details of the audit number, the owner, the leader, the status, the start date, the end date. What is the focus in the report? We have the details of the planning, of the audit planning. We have the executive summary. Here we have details of, it's difficult for you to see that, I know it's quite small, but we have CCTV, these are the non-conformances. CCTV is unserviceable, Kevlar body armor is missing, trauma bags are missing, razor wire inadequate in places. So these can all be basically recorded. And then it's signed off with an electronic signature by the auditor on the ISSer. And then you have your details of your results, what's good, what's not good, in a nice, easy, simple format. And then you can have more detail about your non-conformances and what are your issues. All of these have been captured electronically. These are then created in the final report. And then you can attach your media. Here are your media, here's your photos, here are your videos. So I think Zario made a very important point in his presentation yesterday when he basically, one of the points that he made was that change is the only constant. We need to evolve, we need to adapt the way we're doing our business. So we have the potential through Air Fleet Manager to manage fleets of UASs, UAVs and drones. And paperless audit systems are Not yet widespread, but there's a lot of potential for ISSA in marine surveying and auditing, but also there's a potential for mixing up the two, putting the two together. Doing a rig check using ISSA with a drone facility, and these sorts of elements. Thank you very much.